Story 1. My first girlfriend, whom I truly loved at the ripe age of 17, dated for about 7 months. We had plans to move interstate together, and she moved first to secure the accommodations. I was to follow a week later, and once I'd finished working. 2 days in, she tells me not to bother because she's met somebody. I was devastated for a whole year afterwards. Well, she ends up marrying the guy and moved in with him and his best friend. Lived together happily for a few years, no issues with the marriage whatsoever. Well, one summer, ex-girlfriend, hubby, and housemate all decided to go on a 3-week road trip together. Part ways through, hubby gets called back to work and has to fly home. So, ex-housemate and finishing the trip and return home. Upon returning, ex and housemate announced they've discovered their undenying love for each other on the trip and would henceforth be an item. Hubby, and understandably, is crushed, and here's the kicker. Not only did the three of them live together, so hubby had to listen to them ducking every single night, but hubby and housemate work together in the same company in the same cubicle directly opposite of each other. Wow, it can't get any worse. Edit. I discovered this when I took a job at the same company and heard the tale around the office. Ex and housemate have since had a child, and I'm eagerly awaiting the next chapter in the saga. Story 2. Mine is, quote, the one that got away, did not know I dodged that bullet until that bullet somehow swooped around the world and still got shot. I had a massive crush on one of my older brother's friends in high school. All-star field hockey player and an artist. For some reason, my bro's friends liked me and I could tag along to picnics and parties. She would hang out with me like a babysitter when I was clearly out of place and we've drawn and sculpted. Teach me to play field hockey while everyone was drinking. I was 13, she was 16. Well, let's fast forward now 12 years. I'm at the beach with my brother and his friends show up for the weekend, including her. Once again, a lot of drinking, and we're the only people keeping it at a low simmer. Prefer to go swimming, running on the beach, playing frisbee, handling the grill. One night, we were the last people standing, and she put her head on my shoulder and said, I made her weekend. Well, we hooked up, and she told me she was going to break up with her boyfriend back where she lived. News to me, but I thought, oh my gosh, the woman that I dreamt about is infatuated with me. Yahtzee. Eventually, we moved in together, got married, despite my brother, her sister, her mom, and her friends privately warning me to watch out, that she's a sneak. Well, it turns out she was actually a functional alcoholic and hid the actual amount that she ever drank. She cheated on me multiple times. She was very, very good at lying and living 2 lives at once. I never even suspected anything for 5 years. I should have seen that gigantic bullet coming, everyone else did. Instead, I took the one straight to the heart. Story 3. Well, this was in the early 2010s. So, I was working part-time at a travel agency, and the in-house camera guy too. This field trip was held in 2 days for 2 batches of students who were to trek the mountains. Every day I was absent because I forgot to borrow shoes as it gets really muddy there. This is a tropical country, so it always rains. Well, first day went without a hitch. I felt quite bad for not making that extra cash and missing the photo opportunity. Second day, I was absent because I'm too emotionally broken from a breakup and I've decided to just binge watch 2 seasons of American Horror Story. Way past call time. Didn't even call in sick either, and my 2 friends handled the bus, so I guess they'd make up an excuse for me. That afternoon, I was getting weird calls from a college teacher who was not part of the tour group asking me if I'm okay and where we are. I guess I was the only person she could contact because there's no reception in the mountains. Apparently, it's all over the national TV. A freak accident and a college student field trip, and there were casualties. Well, I was so worried because those 2 friends are like my best buddies to this day. And I wonder if they're okay because the incident happened to students from the bus we were assigned to. I was told later there was a small rush of ankle-deep water as they were crossing the shallow stream. It's disputed how it went, but I heard students got bit excitement because yay, some water filling the dry land. And then just the water, it just kept rushing in, growing until this little islet at the center was being consumed by dark muddy water with lots of rocks and logs. There were, I believe, 13 of them in the middle of what turned immediately into an island, including mountain guides who can definitely swim. As a precaution, there's always some type of rope that you hold whenever we're crossing that sort of area, but that day was different. It was a flash flood that was described like a tsunami. Ankle-deep water turned meters high, and those 13 people stuck were clinging to a rope that can't save them. You can't outswim such huge water, it's full of big rocks and trees. Well, 7 of them lost their lives, and most of them haven't even turned 18 yet. It was one-of-a-kind type freak accident in the area as the flood was so unnatural. There's conspiracies that the flood was triggered artificially to bring down logs from up on the mountain stream, where they could be collected. Illegal logging is prevalent in that area. None of this was proven though, so it was ruled out as an accident. Parents lost kids, teachers lost jobs and retirement pay, and some strange luck thought that my friends did not make it to the stream before it flooded. They are all still filled with dread when they remember that day. Bodies were recovered hours to days later, and personally, one eerie detail is some of the casualties were wearing my merch designs. I never thought I'd see my work like that on TV. Man, it was very gruesome. Well, I guess you could say I dodged that bullet that day. It was a very unfortunate thing, and I still think about the kids we've lost sometimes. One of them was buried near my mom's headstone. Hard to not notice. Story number 4. I met her when I was in high school. Her name was Jessie, and she was the first girl who paid attention to me. I was head over heels in love with her, just absolutely swooning. We dated as much you can say that as 2 14-year-old kids holding hands in the hallway between classes. Long conversations on the phone after school, going to the movies and cuddling, that kind of thing. Yeah, she was also my first kiss. It was as much first kiss as you could possibly get. I was barely a teenager and I was convinced she was going to be my wife someday. If you've ever been 14, you know how it goes. She moved away after freshman year of high school, about 30 minutes to another school district. But to a kid who could not even legally drive for another 2 years, she may as well have been on a different planet. I, of course, was devastated. We remained friends, but I always wanted more. Jessie kinda kept me around because she liked the attention and always teased at getting back together, but that never amounted to anything. It wasn't until I was much older that I realized how manipulative and crappy she truly was. Obviously. Well, she broke up with me and when she moved and went to date with a whole slew of characters all throughout her high school, eventually landing on her second cousin, at 17 years of age. They dated for a while, and even though her family was pretty accepting, everybody seemed to acknowledge that it was really ducking weird. Sometime after that, she broke up with him for some guy she just met, and they hightailed it to Alaska after graduation. From there, they took up skiing lessons, where she fell in love with the ski instructor and dumped the dude she drove to Alaska with. That poor dude had to drive all the way the heck home to the Midwest, and she wound up having a kid with the ski instructor dude. Well, that was years ago now, and we've since fallen out of touch. I've long since moved on with my life. Last I heard, she dumped that ski instructor dude and went out to her next guy. Not so much of, that one got away, so much more of like, it felt like at the time when I was 14 and just figured things out. But man, I am so glad that she dumped me. Story number 5. I was in love with the girl, but was too scared to do anything, and she eventually got tired of waiting and just moved on to some sociopath who I used to think was a friend. He used to get me to go with her, and then he told me that, quote, if I want to sleep with her, I just have to wait until he gets bored with her. There's nothing easier than taking advantage of a girl who needs a shoulder to cry on, bro. Well, after that, I was a mess. I finally declared my love, then I would send her 50 messages a day, demanding an answer or telling her to choose between me and him. I was convinced that she was, well, my only path to a relationship and happiness. I became increasingly paranoid if one person I thought was a friend could betray me and say something like that, then anybody can. So I isolated myself and hated myself for my breakdown and how I was acting and harassing her and more. I was truly not in a good place mentally, so I left, moved to another country. Moving helped, but when I started socializing again and started meeting new girls, I found that I would get very controlling and annoying. Like, I'd meet a girl I got along with at a party, then follow her around, inject myself into every conversation she was having, etc. I knew I didn't want my insecurities and issues to affect other people. So when Corona came along, I was kind of happy for the opportunity to deal with my crap without any social pressure. And that's what I've done these last few years. I feel like I'm in a pretty good place now, and I'm ready to go back out there. As for the girl, after the sociopath, she ends up in a very controlling relationship. When she first told me, well, I was furious. I told her to come live with me, that I would treat her right. Which was a lie, of course. I couldn't see it at the time, but I would have been just as controlling, if not worse. Well, she did call me 2 weeks ago and told me that she finally left him. We're slowly getting to know each other again, but I know I don't want anything romantic with her. She was one of my best friends before things went bad, so I want her to be good and, well, feel free and happy. I'll offer to help in any way I can, but we're both different people than who we were before things went bad. Anyways, she was the one that got away. But she wasn't the bullet I was. Too bad she dodged right into the path of another bullet. Story 7. She was the one who got away, but then I finally got my chance and was hit by every bullet she had in the chamber until I finally ended things. So, we matched on Tinder in our freshman year of college and it was awesome. We met up for a lovely little coffee date and then met again shortly after to study together. We kissed. She went home, and then she ghosted me. It was so weird because I felt like everything was going fine and she disappeared. She even had read receipts on, and I would occasionally check to see if she read my text message, but she never even opened it. During our second semester, she answered my text message as if a few months had not just gone by, which I thought was strange, but hey, whatever. It was nice to talk to her again. We kept talking until I broke it to her that I was transferring to another school in the state, and after that I rarely heard from her. It wasn't like I was in a huge state. It might have been about an hour drive from my school to her school, so trying to date after I transferred wasn't really infeasible. So now it's our second semester sophomore year and we start talking again. I don't remember what sparked it. She came to my school a few times and we would hang out, study, and just goof around. It was lovely and I thought things were really good between us for about 2 weeks. And then you guessed it. She ghosted me again. Oh, I'm laughing now thinking back on it. So, maybe 2 years have passed and it's our senior year of college. Somehow we got to talking again and we went on a few dates and it actually stuck this time. We graduated and moved in together, and this is where I feel I should have recognized a bunch of obvious red flags that I've ignored. Because I was just so infatuated with this girl. She was extremely selfish, showed signs of being narcissistic, and I ignored all the gaslighting and these signs because she disguised them really well as being a quirky person. She was extremely manipulative and compulsive little liar, and just honestly worked me just like she would work other people. Eventually, she starts cheating on me and gaslighting me more, and I just fell into a horrible depression. And finally, I couldn't take it anymore, trying to keep this relationship together with someone who didn't care about me, so I broke up with her. I didn't dodge the bullet. When I had 2 opportunities, I dodged the bullet. I wish I had, but I learned a lot of valuable lessons from this relationship, and I think pulling myself out of that deep hole, I was able to be much more healthy and, well, a happy person. So, cheers to healing.